Welcome to Gone Legends. Today, we remember several American stars, people whose art, passion, and voices shaped so many lives. Though they are gone, their legacies live on forever. Brian Wilson, co-founder and the creative genius behind the Beach Boys, was born on June 20, 1942, in Inglewood, California. From a young age, Brian showed an extraordinary ear for melody, harmony, and emotion, a gift that would change the sound of American music forever. In the 1960s, Wilson helped define the spirit of California through songs that captured sun, youth, and endless summer. But behind the cheerful harmonies was an artist constantly searching for something deeper: beauty, vulnerability, and truth. His arrangements were more than pop, they were poetry set to music. As the band's chief songwriter, producer, and arranger, Brian crafted timeless classics like Good Vibrations, Wouldn't It Be Nice, and God Only Knows. These weren't just songs, they were intricate symphonies that blended optimism and melancholy, joy and introspection. Each note reflected his relentless pursuit of perfection and his belief that music could express the full range of human emotion. But Brian's story was not without struggle. He battled mental health issues for much of his life, facing anxiety, depression, and the pressures of fame. Yet even in his most difficult moments, he never stopped creating. His vulnerability became his strength, and his music became a sanctuary for anyone who ever felt misunderstood or alone. On June 11, 2025, Brian Wilson passed away at the age of 82. The news sent waves of grief across the music world. Artists, fans, and friends alike remembered him not only as a musical innovator, but as a man whose courage and honesty made his art immortal. Brian Wilson's legacy is unmatched. He taught the world that beauty and experimentation can coexist, that vulnerability can be powerful, and that music can heal. His songs remain timeless, echoes of a genius who turned sound into emotion and left behind a harmony the world will never forget. D'Angelo, born Michael Eugene Archer on February 11, 1974, in Richmond, Virginia, was one of the most gifted and soulful voices of his generation. A true pioneer of the neo-soul movement, he redefined what modern R&B could sound and feel like. From an early age, D'Angelo showed a deep connection to music. Raised in a musical and spiritual home, he began playing piano in church, where his father was a preacher. That gospel foundation would remain the heartbeat of his sound, a blend of faith, emotion, and raw honesty. In 1995, D'Angelo burst onto the scene with his groundbreaking debut album, Brown Sugar. The album's smooth grooves and poetic lyrics marked a new era in R&B. Songs like Lady and Cruisin' turned him into a star, but it was his soulful authenticity, his refusal to follow trends, that set him apart. 5 years later, he released Voodoo, an album that changed everything. With tracks like Untitled, How Does It Feel, and Devil's Pie, D'Angelo blurred the lines between funk, soul, and hip-hop. The record earned him 2 Grammy Awards, including Best R&B Album, and solidified his status as one of the most innovative artists of his time. But success came with its struggles. Fame, pressure, and personal battles led him to step away from the spotlight for more than a decade. Yet when he returned in 2014 with Black Messiah, it was worth the wait. The album was a masterpiece, politically charged, emotionally powerful, and deeply human. It showed that D'Angelo wasn't just a musician, he was a messenger. On October 14, 2025, D'Angelo passed away at the age of 51 after a private battle with pancreatic cancer. His death left the music world heartbroken, but his voice, warm, spiritual, and full of truth, will live forever. D'Angelo's music wasn't just about sound, it was about feeling. He wove together soul, gospel, funk, and R&B to create something timeless, something real. His work explored love, pain, identity, and faith, connecting deeply with those who listened. He broke boundaries. He inspired artists from Erykah Badu to Anderson .Paak, Frank Ocean, and her. And even though he's gone, his influence remains in every note of modern soul. D'Angelo will forever be remembered as a revolutionary, a man who made us feel every beat, every word, and every truth he sang. Loretta Swit, born on November 4, 1937, in Passaic, New Jersey, was an actress whose warmth, humor, and strength made her a television legend. Best known for her unforgettable role as Major Margaret "Hot Lips" Houlihan on the groundbreaking series MASH*, she became a symbol of intelligence, compassion, and resilience during one of television's most memorable eras. When MASH*, premiered in 1972, it was more than just a comedy. It was a show that balanced laughter with the realities of war, humanity, and healing. As Major Houlihan, Loretta Swit brought depth and complexity to a character who, at first, seemed strict and unyielding but grew to embody empathy, leadership, and emotional strength. Through her performance, she helped redefine the image of women on television, not as side characters, but as equals in every sense. Over 11 seasons, Swit's portrayal earned her 2 Emmy Awards and widespread admiration. Her chemistry with co-stars Alan Alda and Mike Farrell helped make MASH*, one of the most beloved series in American history, watched by millions around the world and still celebrated decades later. Beyond her television success, Loretta Swit was known for her lifelong activism for animal rights. She was a passionate advocate for animal welfare, devoting much of her later life to rescuing, protecting, and giving voice to animals in need. She worked with numerous organizations and even launched her own foundation, Sweetheart Animal Alliance, reflecting her belief that compassion extends to all living beings. On May 30, 2025, Loretta Swit passed away peacefully at the age of 87. Her death marked the end of a remarkable life, one defined by both artistry and empathy. Her legacy reminds us that performance and compassion are not separate acts, they are reflections of the same heart. Loretta Swit showed the world that laughter can heal, that kindness can inspire, and that a life lived with purpose can touch generations. Malcolm Jamal Warner, born on August 18, 1970, in Jersey City, New Jersey, was an artist of extraordinary depth, an actor, musician, poet, and director whose work touched hearts across generations. He first found fame as Theo Huxtable on the groundbreaking sitcom The Cosby Show, a role that made him one of television's most recognizable young faces in the 1980s. As Theo, Warner brought warmth, humor, and sincerity to the screen. He wasn't just a character, he was a reflection of the dreams, struggles, and hopes of countless young people growing up in America. Theo became more than a sitcom son. He became a symbol of understanding, learning, and growth. But Malcolm Jamal Warner's talent extended far beyond that one role. Over the years, he reinvented himself time and again, starring in series like Malcolm and Eddie, Sons of Anarchy, and The Resident, and guest appearances on Suits and Community. He also became a celebrated spoken-word poet, an accomplished bass guitarist, and a passionate advocate for creative freedom. His artistry carried a quiet strength, always thoughtful, always human. He often spoke about responsibility in storytelling and the importance of representing Black men in ways that uplift and inspire. Through his work, he showed that artists can evolve, redefine themselves, and use their voices for something greater than fame. Tragically, on July 20, 2025, Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away at the age of just 54 after drowning off the coast of Limon Province, Costa Rica, when he was caught in a powerful ocean current. His sudden death left fans and colleagues heartbroken around the world. Malcolm Jamal Warner's legacy is one of authenticity and evolution. From a beloved young actor to a multi-talented creator, he reminded us that actors are far more than the roles they play. They are storytellers, dreamers, and mirrors of our shared humanity. Though gone far too soon, his voice, his music, and his message will continue to live on, proving that true art never fades, it only changes form. Charles Robert Redford Jr., born on August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California, was more than just an actor. He was a visionary who reshaped American cinema. Over a career spanning 7 decades, Redford became one of Hollywood's most enduring and respected figures, admired for his intelligence, grace, and commitment to meaningful storytelling. Redford's path to greatness wasn't an easy one. Raised in modest circumstances, he developed a love for art and expression early on. After studying painting in Europe, he returned to the United States to pursue acting, a decision that would forever change film history. His breakthrough came in the 1960s, and by the next decade, he was one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. His filmography reads like a list of Hollywood's finest achievements. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, The Way We Were, and All the President's Men, each showcased not just his charm and good looks, but also a depth and authenticity that few could match. Redford had a gift for choosing roles that reflected human courage, curiosity, and moral conviction. But his talent extended far beyond acting. In 1980, Redford won the Academy Award for Best Director for Ordinary People, a deeply emotional film that revealed his mastery behind the camera. He went on to direct and produce projects that explored the human condition with honesty and artistry. Perhaps his most lasting contribution came with the founding of the Sundance Institute and the Sundance Film Festival, a platform that gave rise to countless independent filmmakers and voices that might otherwise have gone unheard. Thanks to Redford, Sundance became a beacon for creative freedom, inspiring new generations of artists around the world. Beyond film, Redford was a passionate environmentalist and activist. He used his fame to raise awareness about conservation, social justice, and Native American rights. He believed deeply that art and activism could work hand in hand to make the world better, and he lived that belief until his final days. On September 16, 2025, Robert Redford passed away peacefully at his home in the Utah mountains, surrounded by family. He was 89 years old. His death marked the end of an era, but his influence on cinema, on culture, and on conscience remains as powerful as ever. Robert Redford's legacy is one of courage, artistry, and conviction. He proved that film can do more than entertain. It can challenge, provoke, and inspire change. His work will continue to live on in the stories he told, the filmmakers he inspired, and the truths he helped the world to see. Born in 1943, Sylvester Stewart, better known to the world as Sly Stone, was not just a musician, he was a revolutionary. A singer, songwriter, producer, and visionary, Sly redefined what American music could sound like and what it could stand for. From his earliest days in Vallejo, California, Sly was surrounded by rhythm and harmony. He played multiple instruments before he was even a teenager and was producing records while still in high school. But it was in the late 1960s that he changed music forever, forming Sly and the Family Stone, one of the first major integrated bands, men and women, black and white, performing together as equals on stage. Their sound was electric, vibrant, and alive. With timeless hits like Everyday People, Stand, and Family Affair, Sly and his band created more than just music, they created a movement. At a time when America was deeply divided, his songs became anthems of unity, peace, and empowerment. Through funk, soul, and rock, he brought people together under one message: we are all everyday people. Sly's performances were legendary, unpredictable, passionate, and bursting with energy. His charisma was unmatched, his creativity limitless. He fused gospel intensity with funk grooves, psychedelic flair with raw honesty. Every note he played challenged the boundaries of what music could be, blending sounds and styles that paved the way for countless artists who followed. Yet, Sly's journey was not without struggle. Fame brought pressure, excess, and isolation. In later years, he faced personal challenges and retreated from the spotlight. But even through the chaos, his influence never faded. From Prince and Stevie Wonder to Michael Jackson and Bruno Mars, generations of musicians owe part of their sound to Sly Stone. On June 9, 2025, Sly Stone passed away at the age of 82, leaving behind a legacy as bold and fearless as his music. His songs continue to resonate, joyful, funky, and defiantly honest, reminding the world that music can be more than entertainment. It can be a force for truth, equality, and social change. Sly Stone wasn't just a performer, he was a pioneer, a man who used rhythm to break barriers and soul to bridge divides. His voice may be gone, but his groove lives on forever. There are actors who perform, and there are actors who become. Men who vanish into their characters so completely that you forget the performer exists at all. And then, there are a chosen few who redefine what acting even means. One of those rare souls is Robert Duvall. Born January 5, 1931, in San Diego, California, a man whose work is not built on glamour or fame, but on quiet truth. For more than 70 years, Robert Duvall has been a heartbeat in the history of American cinema. From The Godfather to Apocalypse Now, from Tender Mercies to The Apostle, his performances are not loud explosions of ego. They are studies in authenticity, subtlety, and humanity. He doesn't command the screen with noise. He commands it with stillness, the kind that holds you, silently, until you realize you've been watching greatness unfold. Robert Duvall is not the kind of man who chased the spotlight. He is the man who earned it every single time he stepped in front of a camera. And while others played at being stars, Duvall became something deeper, a craftsman, a storyteller, a mirror to the American soul. His life is not just a Hollywood story. It's the story of discipline, struggle, resilience, and the endless search for truth in performance and in life. As we look back at the legacy of this living legend, we see not just an actor, but an entire era of American storytelling, told through his eyes, his voice, and his unwavering commitment to art. This is the story of Robert Duvall, the quiet force who shaped generations of actors, the soldier's son who became one of the greatest actors of all time, and the man who showed us that power doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers. Long before the cameras, before the lights, before the applause, there was a boy growing up in a world of discipline, tradition, and quiet strength. Robert Seldon Duvall was born on January 5, 1931, in San Diego, California. He was the son of a United States Navy Admiral, William Howard Duvall, and Mildred Virginia, an amateur actress. It was a family built on opposites. His father, a stern man of order and duty. His mother, a woman of imagination and expression. From the very beginning, Robert lived between two worlds, the structured life of a military household and the boundless, unpredictable world of art. Growing up, he moved often, from naval base to naval base, living a life of discipline but also isolation. That constant movement shaped him. He learned how to adapt, how to read people, how to fit quietly into any room. Years later, those same instincts would make him one of the most natural actors in Hollywood. But as a boy, Robert didn't dream of acting. He dreamed of belonging, of finding a place where his quiet nature could mean something. He attended the Principia School in Missouri, a private Christian Science institution, before enrolling at Principia College in Illinois. At that time, he wasn't chasing fame or Hollywood dreams. He was studying history, thinking of becoming a teacher. But destiny had other plans. Somewhere between lectures and plays at college, Robert found himself drawn to the stage. He joined the college's drama department, almost on a whim, and something inside him awakened. When he performed for the first time, something clicked. He wasn't pretending, he was being. For the first time in his life, the quiet young man from a military family had found his own language, a language made of truth, silence, and emotion. Robert's father, Admiral Duvall, didn't see acting as a real career. He wanted his son to follow the Navy path, to live a life of honor, service, and command. But Robert knew that command came in different forms. Some led armies, others led hearts. There were moments of tension between father and son, as there often are between duty and dream. Robert respected his father, but he also knew that his destiny didn't lie in a uniform. It lay on a stage, in the unpredictable, dangerous, beautiful world of acting. In the 1950s, after college, Robert made a bold choice. He moved to New York City to study acting full-time. He enrolled in the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater, under one of the greatest acting teachers of all time, Sanford Meisner. It was there, in those small classrooms, that Robert Duvall's transformation began. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. But when he performed, everyone in the room felt it. There was truth in his eyes, a kind of grounded intensity that no one could teach. His classmates included future legends, Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, and James Caan, but even among them, Duvall stood apart. He was quiet, disciplined, and deeply focused. He approached acting like a soldier approaches battle, with precision, preparation, and absolute respect for the mission. Life in New York wasn't easy. He took small theater roles, lived on almost nothing, and worked side jobs to survive. But he never complained. In those years of obscurity, Robert Duvall was building something that fame couldn't give him: depth. While others were chasing fame, he was chasing truth. And that dedication would soon pay off. Because hidden behind the face of a quiet, determined young man was an actor about to emerge as one of the most authentic voices in American film history. Every legend begins with struggle. Every craftsman must walk through years of silence before the applause. For Robert Duvall, the road to greatness was long, uncertain, and filled with moments that would test his will. In the 1950s, New York City was alive with creative energy. Actors filled dimly lit rehearsal halls, chasing their dreams under flickering fluorescent lights. But for every actor who made it, hundreds faded into obscurity. Robert Duvall arrived in that world with little money and big ambition. He worked in tiny off-Broadway productions, often earning just enough to eat. Some nights, he performed in front of audiences so small that he could count them on one hand. But none of that mattered. Every performance, no matter how small, was a chance to refine his craft. He believed in something simple, that truth mattered more than fame. While others sought stardom, Duvall sought honesty. He studied the faces of people in diners, the way they moved, the way they spoke. He observed life itself, preparing for roles that hadn't even been written yet. He wasn't performing for the audience. He was studying humanity. In 1959, Robert got his first television appearance, a guest role on the courtroom drama Armstrong Circle Theater. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. He continued to land small roles in TV series like The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, and The Defenders. Each appearance was another brick in the foundation he was building. Then came 1962, the year that changed everything. Director Robert Mulligan cast him in a small but haunting role in To Kill a Mockingbird, opposite Gregory Peck. Duvall played Boo Radley, a mysterious recluse who says almost nothing, yet represents the very soul of the film. He had no lines. But his silence said everything. When his pale face appeared from the shadows in the film's final act, audiences gasped. It was a moment of pure humanity, fragile, quiet, unforgettable. That performance became one of the most iconic debuts in American cinema. Robert Duvall, the unknown actor from New York, had arrived. Even after To Kill a Mockingbird, fame didn't come easily. Hollywood still didn't know what to do with Robert Duvall. He wasn't a traditional leading man. He didn't fit the mold of Hollywood charm. He was too real, too human, and in those days that was risky. So he went back to the stage. Back to television. Back to work. He appeared in dozens of TV dramas throughout the 1960s, Bonanza, The FBI, NYPD, and The Twilight Zone. He also performed in small films, slowly building his credibility. And while the spotlight took its time to find him, those years gave him something far more valuable: experience. He learned how to disappear into any role. He learned patience. He learned that every great performance begins not with words, but with listening. By the late 1960s, something began to shift. The old Hollywood system was fading. A new kind of realism was emerging, grittier, more honest, more human. And Robert Duvall was built for that era. Directors like Francis Ford Coppola, Robert Altman, and George Lucas were looking for actors who felt real, not glamorous, and Duvall's natural authenticity became his greatest weapon. In 1969, he starred in True Grit alongside John Wayne, playing a cold-blooded outlaw. His performance was brief but memorable. And in 1970, he played Major Frank Burns in MAS*H, directed by Robert Altman, a biting satire that became a cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the quiet actor who could steal a scene without raising his voice. Robert Duvall wasn't just another name anymore. He was becoming a force. He had spent over a decade climbing from obscurity, sharpening his tools, learning every detail of his craft. Now, the world was finally ready for him. And what came next would turn Robert Duvall from a respected actor into a cinematic legend. Sometimes greatness doesn't arrive with applause or headlines. Sometimes, it enters the frame quietly, and never leaves your memory again. In 1962, when Robert Duvall stepped onto the set of To Kill a Mockingbird, he was still just another name on a long casting list, a quiet young actor from New York with no film experience. His role was small. Boo Radley barely appeared for a few moments on screen. No monologues. No long speeches. But it wasn't about what he said. It was about what he made us feel. When Boo Radley finally emerged from the shadows at the end of the film, pale, gentle, and filled with an almost childlike vulnerability, audiences around the world were stunned. Robert Duvall didn't need words. His eyes spoke volumes. In that one quiet moment, he embodied compassion, innocence, and redemption. It was the perfect symbol of what would become his entire career, the art of restraint, of doing more with less. That debut changed everything. Directors took notice. Actors whispered his name with respect. The man who could make silence emotional had arrived. After To Kill a Mockingbird, Duvall continued working constantly. Small parts, big effort. He became a familiar face on television and in supporting film roles, though he still hadn't reached stardom. But what he was building, quietly and steadily, was a reputation. Everyone in the business knew, if you wanted truth on screen, if you wanted raw, honest acting, you called Robert Duvall. Then, in the early 1970s, came a film that would forever immortalize his name. Sunglasses, The Godfather, becoming Tom Hagen. In 1972, director Francis Ford Coppola was assembling an extraordinary cast for his mafia epic, The Godfather. Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Diane Keaton, and among them, a man who wasn't a household name, but whose depth and precision were unmatched, Robert Duvall. He was cast as Tom Hagen, the Corleone family's consigliere, their lawyer, advisor, and quiet conscience. Tom Hagen wasn't loud, violent, or emotional. He was the calm in the storm. And that calm, that unshakable loyalty, came alive through Duvall's subtle brilliance. When others shouted, he listened. When others demanded attention, he commanded it with silence. His performance became the heartbeat of the film, understated, intelligent, deeply human. It was in The Godfather that the world truly saw who Robert Duvall was, not just an actor, but an artist of control, emotion, and truth. Duvall didn't play Tom Hagen, he became him. He studied the psychology of loyalty and power, understanding what it meant to serve a family built on both love and crime. He gave Hagen quiet dignity, a man torn between morality and loyalty, between family and law. Every line he spoke carried weight. Every pause had purpose. Every glance revealed a mind working in silence. And in that performance, Duvall did what few actors could. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Brando and Pacino, holding his own with effortless strength. Glowing star The Godfather legacy. The Godfather became one of the greatest films in history. It won multiple Oscars, reshaped American cinema, and turned its cast into legends. But among those giants, Robert Duvall shined in a way all his own, not through dominance, but through depth. He returned again in The Godfather Part 2, delivering another masterclass in subtlety and power. By then, Duvall had become one of Hollywood's most respected actors. He wasn't chasing fame. He was earning immortality. Robert Duvall's performances in To Kill a Mockingbird and The Godfather were more than just roles. They were statements. Proof that acting didn't need to be loud to be powerful, that emotion didn't have to scream to be unforgettable. He had officially stepped out of the shadows and into legend. And what followed, the next decade, would define him as one of the greatest actors of all time. The 1970s was a decade of change, not only for America but for Hollywood itself. The old studio system was fading, and a new generation of filmmakers was redefining what movies could be. It was a time of risk, realism, and rebellion. And standing at the center of this cinematic revolution was a quiet, steady force, Robert Duvall. In 1979, director Francis Ford Coppola called upon Duvall once again, this time for a role that would become one of the most unforgettable performances in film history. The film was Apocalypse Now, a surreal and brutal masterpiece about the Vietnam War, chaos, madness, and the darkness of human nature. Robert Duvall played Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore, a fearless, eccentric, and commanding officer who led his troops through war with a bizarre mix of confidence and insanity. When he uttered the now legendary line, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning," it became one of the most iconic moments in cinema. But what made Duvall's performance so brilliant wasn't just the line, it was the man behind it. Kilgore wasn't a caricature, he was terrifyingly real. A man who loved war not for blood, but for the strange purity it offered. Duvall didn't play him as a monster. He played him as a soldier with a code, a twisted poetry in his command. He brought humor, humanity, and horror to the role, often all in a single glance. His scenes, filmed in the heat and chaos of the Philippines, became the soul of Apocalypse Now. Even amidst explosions, helicopters, and madness, Duvall's calm, commanding presence anchored the entire film. For that role, he earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and the line, "Napalm in the morning," became a part of American culture itself. Just a year later, in 1980, Duvall delivered another extraordinary performance, this time, one that couldn't be more different. In The Great Santini, he played Bull Meachum, a proud, strict Marine pilot, a man of discipline, love, and rage. The story was intimate, heartbreaking, and deeply human. Bull Meachum wasn't a villain, he was a father who loved fiercely but didn't know how to show it. He demanded perfection, both from his troops and his family, pushing them until they broke, and then wondering why they feared him. Robert Duvall didn't just act this role, he lived it. He understood the psychology of control, the pain behind pride. His performance was so powerful, so raw, that audiences felt torn, hating the man one moment, pitying him the next. The emotional complexity he brought to The Great Santini remains one of his most defining achievements. It earned him another Oscar nomination for Best Actor, and critics hailed him as the most truthful actor of his generation. And then came 1983, Tender Mercies. If Apocalypse Now was chaos, and The Great Santini was control, Tender Mercies was peace. Duvall played Max Sledge, a washed-up country singer haunted by his past, a man broken by fame, failure, and regret, searching for redemption in the quiet Texas plains. It was a small, delicate film, directed with restraint and heart. But Duvall's performance, it was something else entirely. No theatrics. No grand gestures. Just truth. Every pause, every sigh, every look in his eyes told a lifetime of pain. And in his stillness, audiences found beauty. For Tender Mercies, Robert Duvall won the Academy Award for Best Actor, his first and only Oscar win. When he accepted the award, he said with humble grace, "It's nice to be recognized, but what matters most is the work." That single sentence captured who Robert Duvall truly is, a man defined not by fame, but by devotion to his craft. Trophy the master of many worlds. By the mid-1980s, Duvall had done what few actors ever achieve. He had conquered every kind of role, soldier, father, sinner, and saint. He could be terrifying one moment, tender the next. He had become a symbol of artistic integrity in an industry often consumed by ego. For Duvall, acting wasn't about pretending. It was about becoming. He said once, "You don't act emotions, you live them. You let them come through you." And that philosophy made him not just one of the greatest actors of his generation, but one of the greatest of all time. Robert Duvall's 1970s era wasn't just his golden age, it was the golden age of American cinema itself. And through it all, he stood as the quiet soul at its center, grounded, authentic, unforgettable. As time moved forward, Hollywood changed. The world of film grew louder, faster, more digital, but through it all, Robert Duvall remained constant. He didn't chase trends. He outlasted them. He became not just an actor of his generation, but a symbol of endurance, discipline, and quiet excellence. After his triumph in Tender Mercies, Duvall's career entered a new chapter, not one of decline, but of evolution. He was no longer the struggling actor or the intense character man. He was now a master, an artist whose name carried weight and respect in every corner of the industry. In 1989, he appeared in Lonesome Dove, the legendary television miniseries based on Larry McMurtry's novel. Duvall played Gus McCrae, a retired Texas Ranger with a heart full of humor, wisdom, and regret. That role became another defining moment. So authentic, so human, that audiences forgot they were watching fiction. His portrayal earned him an Emmy Award, and Lonesome Dove became one of the most beloved TV dramas ever made. But Duvall didn't stop there. In the 1990s, he continued to move seamlessly between film and television, from Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise to A Civil Action, The Apostle, and The Judge. Each performance carried the same truth. Duvall never phoned it in. Every role mattered. Every line had life behind it. In 1997, Duvall wrote, directed, and starred in The Apostle, a deeply personal story about a fallen preacher seeking redemption. The film wasn't made by a big studio. It was his project, his vision, financed with his own money. Hollywood didn't believe in it, but Robert Duvall did. He played Sonny Dewey, a fiery Southern preacher wrestling with sin and salvation, guilt and grace. It was raw, emotional, and brave. For that performance, Duvall received another Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, proving once again that the fires still burned brightly. He didn't need Hollywood's approval, because he was Hollywood's conscience. Glowing star, a legacy of roles and recognition. Throughout his life, Robert Duvall has been honored with nearly every award an actor can earn. 1 Academy Award for Tender Mercies. 7 Oscar nominations overall. 4 Golden Globes. The Primetime Emmy. A Screen Actors Guild Award. And the National Medal of Arts, awarded by the President of the United States. But if you ask him what matters most, he'll tell you it's not the trophies, it's the work. He once said, "The work lasts longer than the man. That's what counts." And that humility, that focus, has made him one of the few actors loved by both audiences and peers alike. As he grew older, Duvall never retired, he simply slowed down with grace. Even into his 80s and 90s, he continued to take roles that challenged him, inspired him, and gave younger actors a chance to learn. In The Judge, 2014, he starred alongside Robert Downey Jr., delivering a performance that earned him yet another Oscar nomination at the age of 84. It was a masterclass in restraint, a reminder that even after more than 6 decades, Duvall still knew how to break hearts with a whisper. Off-screen, he's lived a life of peace and simplicity. He married Luciana Pedraza, an Argentine actress and director, in 2005. They share a love of music, horses, and quiet living, far from the chaos of Hollywood. He's also known for his kindness. Young actors describe him as generous, direct, and always teaching. He'll share a story, a note, a bit of advice, and in that moment, they realize they're talking to living history. Robert Duvall's career is not defined by fame, but by truth. He built his legacy on honesty, the kind that transcends the screen. From the dusty streets of Lonesome Dove to the smoky jungles of Apocalypse Now, from the pulpit of The Apostle to the soft whispers of Tender Mercies, Duvall has shown the world what it means to live inside a character. He has never been larger than life, because he is life. He represents everything pure about the art of acting, dedication, humility, and mastery of the craft. And in a time when fame fades fast, Robert Duvall stands eternal, proof that real artistry never grows old. Robert Duvall has lived nearly a century on this earth. He has seen war and peace, hardship and triumph, struggle and redemption. And through it all, he has remained what he always was, a quiet man searching for truth in the human soul. In his eyes, we see the stories of America itself, its courage, its flaws, its endless capacity for grace. And as long as film exists, his legacy will never fade. Time. It moves like a river, quiet, steady, unstoppable. And as it flows, it carries away so much, faces, moments, whole lifetimes. But some names, some souls, they remain. And Robert Duvall is one of them. Robert Seldon Duvall has walked the path of a true artist. Born into a world of order, he chose a life of expression. Raised in discipline, he found meaning in emotion. And from the first moment he stepped in front of a camera, he gave himself completely to every role, not to seek fame, but to find truth. He played preachers and killers, soldiers and fathers, cowboys and outlaws. He played men haunted by guilt, driven by honor, broken by life, and searching for peace. And through every performance, there was one thing that never changed: honesty. Whether he stood in a courtroom as Tom Hagen, or on a battlefield as Colonel Kilgore, or sang in a dusty Texas bar as Max Sledge, he was always real. Robert Duvall never acted, he became. In a time when fame has become fleeting and performances are often built for attention, Robert Duvall remains a symbol of what acting truly is. Dedication. Discipline. He approached every role with the same humility: as a student, never a star. He once said, "There are no small parts, only small performances." That philosophy shaped his entire career. It taught generations of actors that the truth of a moment is worth more than 1,000 lines of dialogue. Duvall's strength was never in spectacle, it was in sincerity. He could say more in a single pause than most could say in an entire script. Today, Robert Duvall stands as one of the last living bridges to Hollywood's golden age, a man who worked with Brando, Pacino, Coppola, and still carried the same hunger for honesty that began in those small New York theaters more than 70 years ago. His films live on: The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, Tender Mercies, The Apostle, Lonesome Dove, stories that continue to shape actors and audiences alike. But perhaps his greatest legacy is not found in awards or roles. It's found in the quiet integrity with which he lived his life. No scandals. No pretense. No surrender to ego. Just work. Always the work. And through that work, Robert Duvall gave us something rare, a reminder that greatness isn't loud, it's lasting. He once said, "If you can touch the truth of a character, even for a moment, that's what makes it all worth it." And he's done that, not just for a moment but for an entire lifetime. Robert Duvall is still with us, a living legend, a testament to what it means to live for art, not applause. At 94 years old, he continues to inspire, to teach, and to embody the very spirit of authenticity. His face has aged, his voice has softened, but his light has never dimmed. Because men like Robert Duvall don't fade away. They become part of the story, part of the very fabric of cinema itself. To the young actor in a small theater, to the dreamer who wonders if the world will ever notice, to the artist who chooses honesty over fame, remember the name Robert Duvall. Because his story proves that quiet strength endures, that truth always finds its voice, and that real legends never die. Robert Duvall, the actor's actor. The storyteller's soul. The living embodiment of art itself. Folded hands if you feel inspired by these lives. Please like, share, and subscribe to Gone Legends. Let's keep honoring the stars whose light continues to shine forever.